Hello, good evening, and welcome to Basketball Call. No, it's Sunday Night Breakdown. Daniel Ratledge and Dave Forrester with you to go through all the action in Super League basketball this week. Lot to get through, Dave. Let's start on Friday night, shall we? Uh,
Oh,
Br-
sorry, but you mentioned London on Thursday night because there's a great finish to London's game on
yeah.
Thursday
I've
night.
seen it.
It just doesn't matter. We don't talk about the European games because, to be honest, it's just too much. And Bristol got a good win somewhere or other on the Tuesday night, and Newcastle got well beat by Poland by the Polish team. But London managed somehow to win a basketball game despite not having the ball, being down one without the ball with 30 seconds to
Yeah,
go against the Bundesliga team, all because um, Dean Williams took a charge
yeah,
after at the end of the shot clock after the offensive player had released the ball.
yeah,
Uh, both uh, um, London then called a timeout, and everybody then seemed extraordinarily surprised when the refs gave two foul shots
yeah,
coming out the timeout because the ball had been released. So committing an offensive foul with the ball being released counts as a ball being not under anybody's possession. Team fouls. Dean Williams knocks down two shots. They haven't got a timeout left, and they win. And they
yeah.
get it's a great win against Chemnitz. So
What would have been interesting
hopefully
is
it's a
if the
win again.
if the original shot had gone in, that basket would have counted.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah,
Just
it
goes to
wouldn't.
make your shots. Doesn't matter what's going to happen afterwards.
Yeah.
Make your shots, and then they would have been down three with the shot
Two
with
free
two shots.
throws. Yeah,
Probably game over. So
yeah.
yeah, but yeah, it was a weird way to win a game. I thought it
It
was worth a
was.
mention.
Yeah, yeah. It's not one you see every week.
Mhm.
So let's go to Bristol Flyers 86, Cheshire Phoenix 95. Obviously holding back against the Knicks. There was some stuff in and around that on social media, and obviously a bit of chatter. And then Diggins gets an unsportsmanlike. Diggins wasn't even there last year, but he was the one pushing Holden after a foul less than 2 minutes in.
Yeah, there's a couple of things about this game. I thought firstly, I thought it was probably Bristol's first kind of Friday night after a Tuesday night on the road game
Yeah,
this year, and they weren't ready for the game. They weren't, and the travel, etc. Coming back from Europe does have an impact, and there's always, I think, the EMBL teams, not London because they're too good, but the NBL teams are potentially going to have maybe three or four of these games every year whereby they're not quite at it at the beginning when they've been on the road to far-flung parts of Europe and travelled back on EasyJet. Um, Obviously, Cheshire are right in the middle of a run and full of
mm,
confidence. Then you add in the whole Holden factor.
mm,
And to be honest, the Rideau factor as well, because they played with each other for a year, but I'm not
yeah,
necessarily sure how well they got on, judging by this game. I didn't know about the social media stuff, but that makes a lot of sense to me.
yeah.
And then
I think it's
and
a bit of a weird thing to do before the game, but there you
well,
go.
it just and then what you saw was Holden pressed. What I did spot very quickly was that Holden pressed far too much in this game. He was
Yeah,
trying too hard. He didn't let the game come to him. He was antsy, and basically, for whatever had gone on before, either he took himself out of the game mentally, or Cheshire took him out of the game mentally. I don't know,
mm,
but I think it was probably more him. Um, so yeah, and Cheshire have now taken on the mantle of kind of the league's agitators.
mm,
They don't really care. They're going to get into you. They're going to do what they can to kind of mentally disintegrate you. And I thought Holden did. On top of that, Bristol, as I say, 0 of 9 from three in the first quarter, and this game was
yeah,
won in the first quarter by
yeah. It
Cheshire.
was. So
Um,
so White, Policelli, Brenchley hit threes. They were 11 points up, 9-20. At the end of the quarter, it was 0 of 9 for three versus 4 of 9 for three for Cheshire. 5 of 18 from the floor versus 10 of 19. Uh,
yeah, and Bristol have got a ton of good shooters. So this is what I'm talking about. Maybe that little mental let up, a great win on Tuesday night, a long trip back, etc. They're doing really well. They're 4-1 in the league. Maybe just a little bit of a mental let up, and you can't do that against Cheshire. You just can't because one thing you have to know is that they are relentless, and they're going to be playing the first possession the way they play the last possession. And if you go and the science of how they play is such that if you go through a dry spot, a drought in a game,
mm,
they're likely going to beat you.
yeah,
Have to keep scoring the ball against them. You have to keep them picking the ball out of their own basket, you know, and then you have to deal with all the other stuff, and you have to deal with it with discipline. Now Bristol came back into the game a little bit, and Joe Anderson made some shots. But they got a lot of good shooters, and for them to be 0 of 9 from the three-point line in the first quarter, kind of, it was a 15-point game. It felt like 20.
Yeah, Lee peaked at 15. Rideau got his third foul middle second quarter, but they stayed about 10 points ahead. In the third quarter, the lead came down to 5 and then to 3. But last 2 minutes of the quarter, 7-0 run to Cheshire back out to 59-69. And then same thing happened in the fourth quarter. They got it to 2 with 3.5 to go. They had a shot to take the lead from Joachim, but then
But
Robinson to the rim, turnover, Diggins 3, Dugalich blown layup, Robinson 3, and it's back to 10.
yeah, I mean they were there, but they weren't quite there. To play against Cheshire, they're a unique team to play against. You have to do they really challenge you on the kind of the margins of the game. And what I mean by that is you have to get back in the perimeter on the in the transition, sorry. You have to close out on the perimeter meaningfully, but you can't over close out. You have to, if you're going to double or put two men on the ball, you have to do it with a purpose because they're going to look to find a shooter, and everybody knows everybody's allowed to shoot it,
Mm,
you know. And if you don't do, and you have to defensively rebound, and if you don't take care of that stuff, they will eventually get you because
mm,
it's a long game. And the shots with Cheshire, it's a longer game than it is with many of the other teams because Cheshire are putting up the ball more. There's more
mm,
shots going.
mm,
Ball's going fast, which is why you've got to try and get them to take the ball out of their own basket because
mm,
defensively they're okay, but they're not great. But they're gonna beat you by being offensively powerful and
mm,
keep shooting the ball and keep doing what they do, offensively remorseless. So yeah, it was. I mean, Bristol obviously they're running through some bodies. I mean, Dugalich is struggling a little bit. He was in the game in the fourth quarter because they were trying to match up, but he's struggling to finish a little bit at the rim and as I say, you can't have non-scorers or people who are struggling to score the ball against Cheshire on the court. It becomes very, very difficult. It's not saying it's all on him, but he's the one that hasn't really played as much as the others from the imports perspective, and hasn't really kind of had that game yet where he shows this is what I'm about. The rest of them kind of have, but they're a 9, possibly 10 deep. Brown had a great game in Europe. He's the one who's really impressed probably the most out of what the expectations were coming into the season.
mm,
He actually looks like he belongs. He looks almost like a smoother version of Watson Gale when they had him 3 years ago.
mm,
So he's probably the biggest thing for them. But as I said, you play Tuesday, Friday, and you play on Tuesday in far parts of Europe. Eventually, it will catch up on you. And I thought it caught up on them in the first quarter, and you can't give Cheshire 15.
no, no. First away win of the season for Cheshire, fourth win in a row. Joe Anderson, 17.6 of 3 of 6, even from 3-point range, 5 assists. Joachim, 16. Delpesh, 11. Robinson, 20.7 assists. Polocelli, 17 points and 11. I put assists. I think it might be rebounds rather than
Yeah.
assists. White, 15 points and 7 rebounds. This was a classic 3 is worth more than 2 game.
Yeah.
They both shot 71 field goals. It was 31 makes versus 33 makes. They were about even on the free throws as well, 17 of 21 versus 16 of 24. But the difference was 7 of 26 from 3 versus 13 of 36 from 3.
What you're saying is there's 10 extra points going back in there.
Mm,
10 threes instead of 10 twos.
yeah.
So you got 10 extra, you got a chance of 10 extra points. Yeah, I mean the numbers side of it figured out, provided you generate good enough threes.
Yeah.
The way they generate threes is basically by playing 5 out, and putting the ball in the hands of their offensive players, Robinson and Rideau, and knowing that if you cheat off any of them, if either of them, they're going to throw the ball around the perimeter. If you don't follow Skyler when he sets a ghost screen, he's going to get the ball and going to throw it to you.
Mm,
Whenever Policelli is, if you're not in Policelli's grill, it's going up.
mm,
Brenchley the same, and then they're all going to rebound. So, it's a stylistically, it's a very simple style that they have, based on reads and smart, intelligent reads from their players. But it's very difficult to guard because it requires more discipline than anything else.
mm,
And certainly when I was coaching, the 5 out teams were the hardest to guard. Didn't necessarily mean they're the best teams or the best teams the most likely to beat you, but they were the hardest to guard because it's very difficult to have help in the middle, and also to get out to shooters.
Mm,
It's going to be interesting down the line to see how teams try and handle Cheshire now. Now that they've got now 5 wins, because Robertson is getting to the space in the floor and letting Robertson's getting to the rim. Rideau is making enough plays at the rim, um, or towards the rim to suck in the defense. And you might see some zone getting thrown in there,
mm,
and it's very risky, challenging as a team of shooters with a zone. But they might you're going to need somebody under the rim to protect the rim against them
mm.
and to get back in transition. So we'll see how that kind of plays out.
Let's go to Surrey 89ers 78, Leicester Riders 80. Teogan Dengby in the starting lineup. He was replacing Nedo Sholovinskas, who'd been covering for Kuntz, but then Kuntz did come into the game and then promptly went back out. He appeared to roll an ankle midway through the first quarter as he landed and fouled by Menzies. He never came back into the game. Nothing really in the first quarter. The thing I noticed, Dave, I don't know if you picked it up, Surrey had 5 fouls in the first quarter, and Leicester were 9 of 10
From the
from
foul
the
line.
free throw line. It can't be too many quarters where every foul is a shooting foul.
That's actually a good spot. Actually, no, I didn't pick that up, but I did pick up the fact that had to keep Leicester off the line, and they didn't. Um, I mean, yeah, Quince, bless him, he hasn't had the best start.
Mm,
To get kind of, and even the injury, even the player got injured on, he could have shot the ball. He was wide
mm,
open, to shoot the ball, took a step inside, tried to kind of shoot a 15-footer bank shot instead. And it just seemed to be in his own head a little bit, which reduces Surrey to effectively four import players. And you have to remember that, they're not playing with a full contingent of six. Lawrence played a couple of minutes in this game, but it's clearly not healthy, didn't play in the following game and didn't look healthy in this game. So, they're kind of down on bodies and they've got youngsters in Ling and Cholovinskas playing quite substantial minutes. Um, Leicester look a lot more cohesive. They still got, obviously, they don't have Martin playing, which means that Menzies started and Menzies struggled in this game. He was a -13 because, so he said in the pre-game, or somebody said in the pre-game, might have been Josh, Surrey are smaller.
mm.
And he's, and and
The
so,
other thing is, with Link coming off the bench, they kind of miss each
yeah,
other, and that would be the.
that's right. Yeah, that's interesting what we do with matchup going on. And actually, Leicester got the best minutes out of Suleiman at the five.
Mm,
They played really small, and that was easier for them to do against the Surrey team. So size isn't sometimes it can help you, sometimes it can hurt you. Um, I just felt like Leicester got better shots during this game than
mm,
Surrey. Um, but Leicester kind of aren't quite kind of gelled enough. Obviously, it's only Carey's second game, so there were some breakdowns. They got some. The guards are talented though.
mm,
Um, the only thing that they're kind of playing through at the moment it is kind of Evie now has suddenly got a totally different role.
mm,
So from being the main guy, the guy who had to score the ball, suddenly now he looks one side, he's got Carey, he looks another side, he's got Battle. And you don't need to be shooting the ball that much.
mm,
These guys can play. So, you look at them and you think probably Carey's actually probably a point guard as well. Battle's obviously not, but Carey looks like a guy who's had the ball in his hands a lot. He can play with 2 point guards on the court. Often it's a positive. But there's a bit of a yin and yang whilst that's going on, when
mm,
they're playing together. So that they're still kind of working that through and kind of doing it by committee at the 4 spot as well.
mm. Most of the first half was a single possession game. The offense kind of slowed a little bit in the second half. Queeley with 5 points put Surrey 62-55 ahead. Suleiman and Johnson with threes to finish the third quarter. Acott and Johnson with threes to start the fourth quarter put Leicester back
Yeah,
in front 64-66. And then it comes down 3 minutes to play. Surrey up by two, 76-74. It's going to go
yeah,
through the plays. Anything to say before that?
not really, but basically you've just pointed out, that Leicester made 4 threes in that period of time in
Mm.
that when they were down. Yeah. Um, from memory, Leicester maybe only had 31 points in the second half of this game, something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
Good memory. So that's 12 of them. Okay. You then add the two that we're going to talk about next.
Mm,
That's 18. Right. From my perspective, Surrey's issue at the moment, everybody has issues early in the season. but the issues that have kind of made themselves clear in relation to Surrey. We talked about it last week in relation to kind of Wright and Ragsdale and somebody else making threes. Is that they've given up they've given up too many open looks, open threes.
mm,
Even in the first half, Carey stepped into a couple where the guy on the big on the screen
mm,
wasn't high enough up. And they had this game to a certain degree, but then Sheffield came, not Sheffield, Leicester came back and got themselves some open 3-point shots and knocked them down.
mm,
You know, these were like kickouts to Johnson or to, as you say, to I think Suleiman made one,
mm,
Carey made one, whatever. And they're the shots you've got to try and take away. Now, what that means is, particularly Battle, who was very good the whole game, looks like just a pure scorer. And in fact, I've got a comparison for Battle from my experience. Um, Two guys who look very, very different. But watching him shoot the next two threes we're about to talk about
mm.
gave me Jeremy Hyatt vibes.
Oh, wow. High praise indeed.
High praise indeed. He's one of the best Newcastle Eagles guards we ever had.
Mm,
And a 6'6" shooter from North Carolina State.
mm,
You know, and then obviously Battle's about 6'6" from West Virginia.
mm,
We're talking similar kind of resumes. And just the way that he's able to rise up and shoot the basketball without it looking like he's shoot, without having to force anything. And has that kind of confidence to do it. Obviously, he's a little bit more athletic than Jeremy. I think
mm.
even Jeremy would.
Slightly different hairlines as
And it's a
well.
very different hair. He doesn't have the yeah, exactly a lot more hair.
Mm,
Yeah, we had a song about that, but way back in the day. But I don't remember too many 6'6" guys in our league who've been that comfortable in the triple threat position,
mm,
whereby wherever the ball is in his hands, he's a risk to rise up over somebody and shoot it when guarded. you know. So he did come to me. And what happened is, as you say, the game's on the line, and this is the importance of 3-point defense because basically two possessions in a row. The first one, Battle steps around a screen to his left, and he's comfortable going to. I think it's to his left,
mm,
and he's comfortable going to his left. And the big is not up on the screen, and the guard does not get across to it. And he rises up and shoots a rhythm three that you reckon he must have shot 1,000 times
mm.
in practice. Just knocks it down like it was a foul shot.
76, 77, 2:38 to go.
Yeah, and I think they then did they miss one at the other.
Queally missed the three at the other end.
Really misses a three at the other end, kind of goes in and out. And then the next possession, this is the one that, I mean, the first one, 3 minutes to go in the game, you can't give that shot up.
Mm,
This one was kind of a rookie shot, a rookie job because Battle gets thrown the ball on the wing. He's got Polite in front of him in perfect defensive position, you would say. Not doing anything wrong. He's there, but he has no appropriate fear of Battle.
mm,
He doesn't know Battle's already got 22 points, 23 points. And what he has to do at that point, because he's 6'6", at the end of the day, he's going to be less effective driving the basketball, particularly on his weak hand, than he is doing what he wants to do, having just made a comfort rhythm shot. And he catches a ball, and because Polite hasn't taken the space away, he just rises up Hyatt-esque and drains another one, right?
1:56 to go. Late shot clock. 76-80.
That's a hell of a shot. I'm not knocking Battle at all. That is his game. He's that good, right? But if you're Surrey, you can't give that shot up at that point. It wasn't off an advantage. It wasn't off a kick out. It was just Leicester's best shooter with the basketball. If you've watched enough basketball so far about him this season, you know that he can make that shot. He's made that shot ever since he came in. Ever since he came in, and he played 4 games. So those two shots won the game. No question in my mind. That was the game. Because Leicester was struggling to score. They had 31 points in the second half. Out of that, we've just talked 18 of them are on those 6 threes.
Mm,
So they weren't that cut. There may have been another, I think Evie might have even made a three, I can't remember. So they were struggling to score the ball at the rim, and so we were there. By giving that up, you gave them the cushion which they just survived across.
mm. We'll run through the last few plays. 1:27 to go. Queally turned down a good-looking three to take a tough one at the shot clock buzzer. That didn't go. Surrey then committed a foul. It's only their first of the
Well,
quarter.
there was also a play somewhere in this time because the third time Battle got the ball. Finally, Surrey pressed up on him. He put the ball on the ground. He drove into the rim and he was blocked.
It was Clary that was blocked, I think, going to the basket. 1:15 to go. That's the next play.
Who was that?
I've written down Cleary. I might be wrong.
Terry.
It might have been. I might have been Carey. I don't
Sorry,
know
I've just
why. I've
Terry. That's
written
fine.
down Cleary. I don't know why because there's nobody called Cleary playing.
I thought it was
Uh,
Battle. Maybe wrong. But nevertheless, they forced someone to drive and they got to stop.
yeah,
I suppose that's the basic point. You've got to do that with 3 minutes. You've got to do that on those two possessions when the game's being played. You can't give them the two threes earlier and
yeah.
then force them to drive the reaction. That's knowing the thing, knowing what's going to happen before it happens, and it was too late for them.
So that blocks with 1:15 to go. Lily misses a three with 1:03 to go. 47 seconds to go. Small with what I didn't think was a great foul, given the clock had got down to 10 seconds.
Yeah,
You might as well carry on playing defense at that point.
yeah.
Small then immediately fouls on the inbound, 45.9. And then inbound to Carey. He loses the ball out of bounds. He was arguing for a foul, but it went out off him last for a Surrey possession.
I think he swept through with the ball. I think he
Mm,
probably did just get caught on the wrist when he was swept through, but he couldn't see it on the camera.
mm,
Just the way you kind of got that kind of sweep through motion to take it to that side.
yeah.
And I've struggled to believe he did drop the ball out of bounds, but I
Mm.
don't. It wasn't immediately obvious.
Uh, Timeout. No advance of the ball. Obviously, they're still down four at this stage. They didn't seem in a massive rush either, to be honest with you.
No, it was a bit strange, wasn't it? Yeah,
Yeah.
they didn't know where they were going, but they got a backdoor cut on the baseline, didn't
Yeah, Lily going back door with 31 seconds to go, lays it in for 78-80. Um,
they?
31 seconds, just enough time to play defense.
Yeah, that
Down to.
exactly. But
Mm,
that's why they're taking those extra 5 or 6 seconds on that offense make a
yeah,
difference.
yeah, yeah. Leicester run the clock. Evie with the deep three, but Polite blocked it. So Surrey with about 8.5 seconds left down two. They ended up with a tough corner three from Polite. It wasn't a million miles away, but I didn't think it was a great option either.
Well, there's two things about that. It's like, right, okay, now you're blocking threes.
Mm,
I think Leicester have 13 of 28 in this game, something like that. And you showed you can do it. They've got to get out to the perimeter more in games going forward. The ball, it was kind of difficult because it was Evie shot and it was blocked. And it was kind of a broken play, but it was a
mm,
kind of a broken play where it wasn't whereby they got a rebound and they were able to kick it out. It was almost everybody's flat-footed because everybody's on defense
mm.
when the ball went up in the air to catch it. So
They
there
also
wasn't
all ended up on the same side of the court,
inside
so
the
the
court. Yeah,
passes weren't quite
yeah.
as
And
crisp.
Leicester kind of did a good job in keeping them on the same side of the court. To be
Mm,
fair, I think it might have been Aycott once somebody kind of showed in the middle of the court to keep the ball there. I didn't think there was any. I didn't think the Surrey. I mean, I saw Small was running down the middle of the court, and I didn't think he cut with any particular wish to kind of get the ball. And they ended up being a little bit tentative. But as you say, at the end of the day, it was a good shoot. It was a corner three for one of your two main shooters.
mm,
A bit of a double clutch on it, but it wasn't that he wasn't jacking it up.
mm.
It was one of those ones whereby, to be honest, every time we played down there, that shot went in.
Yeah, yeah,
I remember what was the name? The big fella, the big power forward who made one against us to take the game into overtime. Anthony, somebody played at the Rocks as well. Um, Oh, I'm thinking Alanga because that's Newcastle Eagles, because that's a Newcastle United player. But
yeah.
it was a big. He couldn't shoot, but he made one against us. I'll remember the name.
Mm,
But no, I mean it was one of those ones where if you you know Leicester bench you think you're looking at it thinking, yes, shake hands. Let's be cool about this. But and really your heart's like, where's it going in or not? But even then, Taylor had a rebound at the far end, but they didn't get a shot off in time, so they didn't have enough seconds
mm,
to get it. So I didn't think, yeah, I thought, I'm not overly keen on Leicester giving that shot up in
mm,
that time. I don't think Surrey worked for it, to be honest. But, you got to get the wins any way you can.
mm,
And it's very early season for this type of stuff.
mm. Yeah, and Leicester always winning
And
despite all
it's
that.
already, yeah, indeed, yeah.
It was. I looked it up the other day. It was David Cameron's 18th month anniversary of being prime minister. Last
What,
time they lost it,
what
the
did he ever
sports bar.
accomplish? Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Lily, 15 points and 5 assists. Polite, 14 points and 5 assists. Graham and Queeley both with 12 points. They had 11 rebounds between them. 11 of 17 from the free throw line, six missed free throws in a 2-point game.
That was the
Uh,
other thing. Yeah, yeah. Because
uh,
Leicester won, didn't they?
Leicester missed one, yeah, 14
Yeah,
of 15.
that's the game.
Uh, Battle 27, Carey 13 points and six assists. Johnson 3 of 3 threes for 12 points. There were some random plus minuses
Yeah, so
in
that,
this
yeah.
game. I won't bore everybody with them, but worth looking. Just oddness.
Mm.
Let's go to Sunday. Manchester, stick with Surrey. Manchester basketball 90, Surrey 89ers 90. Ossaboyan into
95.
the, hey,
95.
95. Sorry, 1995. Sorry, one.
Daughter from
Uh,
Virginia.
Ossaboyan into the starters. Kane Henry in for his first SLB appearance of the game and in the starting lineup. Teo remained in the starting lineup. Kuntz obviously that injury that
Kept
in the
him out.
Leicester game, and he was out for this one as well. And you mentioned Lawrence as well. Jones, the first 5 points for Manchester, but threes from Teo and Polite scored seven in a row to make it 12-5 after 3 minutes and an early Manchester timeout.
Yeah, Manchester obviously had 2 weeks off, which is probably
They did play an EMBL game in that.
did they one was
Yeah,
that Tuesday that week last Tuesday or something like
yeah.
that. Yeah, so nearly 2 weeks off because they're playing the Sunday, aren't they?
Mm,
Probably not what you would want at this point, particularly when you've got as many players as they've got.
mm,
Because John's gone. Obviously Henry is in. Nicholson is, as you say, Nicholson's then sits on the bench. Cleary, who's probably been their best, well, certainly one of the best guys in at least two of the three games. Um, he's off the bench now. Um, so there's kind of a lot of, and Osaboyan's in, as you say, so there's a lot of kind of moving parts going on. So if you're the coach, when you've got that type of bench, you probably want to be playing as many games as you can to injure a few to make it easier, ultimately. And even now they still look a little unbalanced to me in relation to their guard production against their forward production. We talked about it previously, the amount of shots that the guards were taking instead of the forwards. Surrey obviously had the benefit of playing Friday night, so they got a bit of rhythm from that. And you see kind of the raw material in Surrey. You see it begin to come together. And again, they've played like 5 games in like 5 weeks. So, it's not easy to get a team playing with each other and playing well in that time. But you're seeing more out of Graham, the centre, and Small, and you begin to kind of appreciate the skill sets and how it's all meant to fit together. I still think they probably need one more guy, but he's probably sitting on Sheffield's bench, not having played a game yet this season.
mm,
At this point, and probably getting paid a bit more than he was at Surrey. So, so they may continue to kind of develop their British kids, but I do think that it's going to be a stretch for them to run with four Americans all
mm,
season. Um, that said, obviously it gives Queeley, Ling, and Cholovinskis a great opportunity to
mm,
to play. So yeah, Manchester a bit sugar rushy again.
mm.
When they're making
Well, they
shots,
didn't.
they're
They
making
didn't.
shots.
They didn't actually make many shots. Manchester early on, apart from Jones.
Yeah,
He was making shots, but they actually got 11 second chance points as well, which sort of helped them along. Apart from him making shots, and Surrey were just shading it. Then Henry with a couple of scores helped them to a 5-point lead. Teo and Sholovinskis hitting threes, 38, 30, 31. It was pretty tight first half, to be honest.
yeah. Well, it was, and watched this game trying to figure it out. I couldn't really figure it out because um, the players coming in and out a lot. Surrey sub a lot. The centres are playing basically 4 minutes a pop. Then Lloyd is having to figure out, which of his British guys having the game at the same time. How much without Lawrence, he's got a lot of pressure is heaped onto Polite and Lilly. So how they're going to get sufficient offense from all of that? In Manchester, it's bewildering because halfway through the second quarter, you'll see Adukasi comes in and he's effective. Henry, you see start the game, but you don't really notice him for the rest of the game. Cleary comes off the bench, but he doesn't really get anything going, so he's not kind of in much rhythm. And so it's all a bit difficult to figure out, all a bit chaotic. But as you say, the one thing that kind of kept them going was the fact that Jones was going,
Mm, mm,
and he's one, a rookie scorer who basically has very limited conscience, from what I can see.
mm.
So yeah, and then it became a game of who's going to score last, basically.
So Surrey went out to 9 early in the third quarter, never got away. The scores were level at 72 early in the fourth quarter. And then down the stretch, Jones and Irvin with threes made it 89-82 with 3 minutes to go. But Manchester only one free throw in the last 3 minutes. Surrey finished the game 13-1. I mean, slightly helped by Manchester fouling them in the backcourt seemingly every time and letting them walk down and shoot
Um,
free throws.
but two things. One, Small was very good in this game. I mean, he
Mm,
was 23, 11, and 5, and he's a pro. He's not a guy. He's been around. He's 27 or 28. So he's probably they're coming off three straight home losses.
mm,
So that kind of focuses your mind if you're a pro, particularly in the first 8 games of being a pro in
mm,
your contract. And I thought he showed that in this game because I mean, I was watching him on Friday, and I was still thinking, what actually is he? What does he do? Is he a post-up guy? Is he a wing guy? Is he an athlete guy? He has probably the skinniest legs in the league.
mm,
He's Sean Myers style, chicken legs
mm.
basically.
Yeah.
Go back all that time, doesn't quite jump as high. But when they're down to two rookie guards, and him. And I don't know where if Graham's played much before. I haven't checked him out, but he's a young centre as well. Somebody's got to be the guy.
Mm,
Particularly when on the road, and he stepped up in this game, which is really important. The other thing that happened was, I think, the Manchester coach Matt Orton, I think he overcoached, and he made one decision which was fairly perplexing, which was with 3 minutes to go, and they're up seven. He took Jones out of the game.
mm,
He took Jones out of the game, and the danger with that, and probably the danger with that is he doesn't get back in the game in the rhythm.
mm,
When he did get back in the game, he jacked a couple of shots out of rhythm, and he didn't get back in the game to about a minute and 10 seconds, and suddenly the 7 point was like maybe a 1 point lead for Surrey,
mm,
because you don't always know when you're going to be able to put a sub in. So I think he overthought that. If you've got a guy who's playing like that. And it's a danger, because the danger when you've got 11 players and they're all capable, Kyle Carey keeps coming in and you keep thinking, why is he not playing ball? Because all he seems to do in that gym is to make threes and play defense,
mm,
But he's playing, what, 7, 8 minutes a game because they've got 11 players. So the danger is when you've got that level of depth in your squad, but no immediate kind of hierarchy, and they don't have a hierarchy at the moment. The two guards are shooting it a lot, but there's no hierarchy as to who is their go-to guy, what's going to happen when the game is close. That the players that are playing have an excuse for it not to be about them. So basically, if 6 players on the bench and your team loses, it's always going to be because I wasn't in the game. Or so it's because I had my 7 points, but coach only played me 15 minutes. I
mm,
could have played a bit more. Okay. So what you need someone to be fully invested to say, this is our game. And that person in that game, it's not always going to be the same person, but that person in that game was Max Jones.
mm,
And he came out the game. And I thought that threw them. And it's only 2 or 3 possessions. So you can say, well, you're reading too much into it. But it's 2 or 3 possessions that matter.
mm,
Now, basketball comes down to 2 or 3 possessions. And the question is, what was there about his demeanor which required him to be taken out of the game at that point? Was his defense not good enough? Was he looking a bit tired? From my perspective, you've got 30, you can't be tired with 3 minutes to go. That's your game. You've put your team in a position to win. You have to be allowed to close it out. And sorry, and also there was a little bit of premature celebration went on with Manchester when they got that seven
Around
point.
the second threes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, which
Yeah.
didn't happen
And
either.
again, the point I made a minute ago, I thought they made it easier for Surrey by fouling them without even having to get the ball over half court. They did it about 3 plays in a row, 4 plays in a row.
Yeah, and again, it's hard to discipline players when you've got 11 of them.
Mm,
Everyone's trying really hard, but it's hard to, sorry, not discipline, hard to instill discipline in players,
mm,
because, everybody's looking around to say, well, whose fault is this going to be if we don't win? Whatever. Everyone's trying too hard, pushing too hard. So yeah, I just think they're a very raw team, Manchester. They haven't played many games either. They're a very talented team. Um, but there are ways they're going to really ride and fall on their guards. Now,
mm,
you look at it, they got four guards there, um, Jones, Johnson, Smith, and Cleary, um, who basically could start probably for any team in the league. Johnson's a pretty solid point guard looking at his record. He's come off the bench playing 12 or 30 minutes. And that's obviously why Cody John isn't there anymore, because he's obviously thought I've got I've got enough here. But even then four guards is tough. And good job by the commentators, by the way, because if I had to commentate on Kayem Cleary and Kareem Queeley at the same time, I think I'd probably go do lally.
mm,
So yeah, they need a the Nicholson thing's interesting as well because it's that whole thing about 7 foot centers which we see in this league.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, I've seen for years and years and years and years and
Mm,
years and years. They can be infected. It can be effective, but such as basketball nowadays, with its reliance on the screen and roll, that you have to be, and such as basketball in this country with its smaller players, and the fives who can shoot threes, that is sometimes very difficult to play guys that big and put them on the
mm,
court.
mm,
The difficulty they have with Ossaboyan is that he isn't a finisher. He's a passer and a body out the the post. But you look at his numbers in CBL, he averages as many points as he does assists. So then teams will play him a little bit differently as well. You'll make him be the finisher. Make smart teams will make Smith and Jones and Johnson pass him the ball to see if he's going to finish. Nicholson's a better finisher around the rim. So you give up more defensively with Nicholson. It's tough. So that's a lot about Manchester. Surrey, I'm still holding back a little bit. I think they could probably do one more guy, but they played together in this game.
mm.
They
Yeah.
stuck out this game, and these guys in Ling and Cholovinskis are only going to be getting better.
Mm. They
The
needed this weekend as well after
Yeah, they haven't played. I mean, they haven't played. I mean, let's be honest, they haven't played. So the two games and the trip will be really good. And winning that game when you come off three home losses, as I say, it's a kind of a season definer.
mm,
If you get to that point whereby you go on the road and you don't think you're going to win games, and you're going from Surrey, that's a bit of a trek everywhere else.
mm, mm,
And you can suddenly be looking at you're 1-6, 1-7, and at that point it is hard.
mm,
So this is a massive win for them.
mm. Jones, 11 of 21 for 30 points. Smith had 10. Nobody else in double figures.
Mm.
Small, 8 of 11, 23 points, 13 rebounds, 5 assists. Lily, 16 points. Polite, 14 points and 6 assists. We were this close to the perfect game, Dave. Surrey scores by quarter 24, 24, 24, 23.
They had 95.
Mm,
Well, we
yeah,
better, yeah, the 89, yeah, that's not bad. That's consistency, I suppose.
yeah.
The
We've
89
never
and
had.
85,
I've been tracking since 2009 quarter scores, and we've never had
what's
the
him?
same score in 4 quarters. It's only the eighth time we've been 1 point away from it.
I'm
So
impressed with that. I'm
it,
glad you've been tracking that because that's
yeah.
something that keeps me awake at night too.
Somebody. The
Um,
funny thing is, I hadn't actually noticed it uh, uh, at the point at the end of the game, but somebody messaged me and went 24, 24, 24, 23. How often does that happen? I was like, oh, good question. I'm going to check that one.
these are our people, aren't they?
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Not
yeah.
many of them, but
No,
those who do are fully committed.
yeah.
Absolutely. And we also, I thought there's a point whereby the 95 point rule might be in play here. But
Mm,
no, Manchester didn't get the 95.
no,
Get
no.
95 at home, you're going to win unless it's in Cheshire or it's overtime,
Mm.
basically.
So let's go to the game in East Kilbride. Caledonia Gladiators 51, London Lions 96. I was obviously dual screening this with Manchester Surrey, which was getting to its dramatic conclusion, and I didn't bother watching the second half. So it was 11-0 after 4 minutes to London. There was a timeout. I couldn't quite tell on the dual screen. Were they still standing at that point? Because it was midway through the first quarter before they
Yeah,
scored, were they?
yeah, they were, you know what I think about that.
Wow, but to stand for 5 minutes, that's hardcore, isn't it? Like
Um,
you've got to appreciate that effort.
no, I think it just puts more pressure on everybody's shuffling around looking uncomfortable, puts more pressure on the team. I don't get it. I prefer you sit down and all stand up after the first basket and stand up for the rest of the game. It makes more sense.
Mm,
What they do in Europe. But anyway, it is what it is. Couple about little bit of mitigation for Caledonia in that the schedule really threw them an absolute brick, didn't it? Because
mm,
going playing in London last week and then playing them close and then having to play them again whilst they've got you fully uppermost in their minds,
Mm,
as opposed to when maybe a couple of weeks' time when they might have forgotten about you behind some thwacking from some Turkish team, uh,
mm,
was unfortunate. Secondly, we talked last week, about you mentioned I was a bit more probably polite to Caledonia about London playing with the food a little bit in that game.
mm.
Um, and looking back on it, I think your assessment was pretty much spot on, having watched this game.
Pretty good because I didn't actually watch that game
Yeah,
either.
yeah,
That was just reading the play-by-play.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. But thirdly, and probably most significantly, um, London did this to Trento.
Mm. Yeah, yeah,
London were up
yeah.
30 in the first half against
Mm,
Trento in the Euro
mm,
Cup, right? So this isn't some form of referendum in relation to Caledonia's
mm,
level or ability. London have the capability to do this against good teams when they are ready. Um, Against that, Caledonia were coming off the happy frame of mind, which is,
mm.
we can play with these guys.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And London were coming out with a message, you really know you can't.
yeah.
And I'm afraid, well, I'm not afraid. I mean, the one thing that was demonstrably encouraging from my perspective was Ethan Price was awesome. Ethan
Mm.
Price
Yeah,
was
yeah, yeah,
awesome in
yeah,
this game.
yeah.
He was the starting centre. His defense at the beginning of the game, on Kevin Allen was aggressive. He fronted. He did everything he meant to do. He spaced the court. He knocked down threes. He caught the ball on the short roll, threw it to the corners. He looks like he is developing quickly, and he's a rookie out of Eastern Washington, I think, in
Mm.
America, right? So he's a 6'10" center, and I'm looking and watching him play, thinking, God, I can't wait to have him playing against Lithuania at the Copper Box.
Yeah, yeah,
Oops,
yeah.
oh, sorry, Forrest. Gosh, shucks, never mind. We'd have to have a functioning governing body for that,
Mm,
wouldn't we?
mm.
But when you talk about players being let down,
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah,
look at that. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
that kid, he has 15, 10, and 5. He looks like he's comfortable in what he's doing. He's in a rhythm. The guy, he's got good size. He's got everything going on. He's
Mm.
actually, we were undersized at the centre spot in the Eurobasket.
Yeah,
He's got
yeah.
more size, he's got a little bit more of that going on. And he's not going to be brilliant straight away. But those games for someone like him,
Yeah,
wow.
yeah. Yeah.
Wow, how are we going to get our players better? Because we can all talk, and London have got probably 4 or 5 guys. They've got Dean Williams, who, if he's up for it, I don't know if obviously some guys want to play GB, some guys don't. So Dean Williams, obviously Aaron Wright or Tarek Phillip, one of those two can play. Amin Adam, who started at point guard,
Mm,
so he's putting a new string on his bow because he hasn't been playing at point guard before in his career. But Sabonis has given him that job. Then you look at Ethan Price as well.
mm,
And you think, and without Soloade, who hasn't played for GB for a while, and even the kind of the guys who play further down the bench. Um, so we got 4 or 5 potential GB players there, and they played great in this game.
mm,
And it was a strategic disemboweling of Caledonia. It wasn't done on a bunch of threes. It wasn't they weren't high-fiving and jumping all over each other. They just came out and they just played and they shut them down at one end and scored at the other end with 3 British guys on the court at any one time.
mm,
So um it was mega impressive.
mm.
It was the most now Caledonia. Obviously, it took them. I think Allen was the only guy who scored in the first quarter.
Yeah.
Is that
So
about
it
right?
was it was 3 of 15 from field goals versus 11 of 16 in the first quarter. It was 6 to 30 after 11 minutes, and nobody but Allen scored for Caledonia until midway through the second quarter.
Yeah, I mean that's remarkable. I mean,
Mm,
a bunch of pro players, nobody else scored the ball. The difficulty is, I mean, London came to Newcastle and they were 10-0 up on Newcastle after 4 minutes. But Newcastle had a little bit more experience, and obviously Taylor went off for 30 in that game, and they had guards who could score and penetrate, and Jack scored the ball as well. So they were able to kind of stay there. Caledonia don't defend particularly well. They're not a great defensive team. I'm trying to find positives for them. Johnny's playing zone, he's playing man, but ultimately they're not overly athletic. Holland is small, right? Is athletic, but he's not great, not a big size compared to, someone like Adamu. Then you look at the wings, Fraser, Malcolm, Ragsdale. and Spielman. You know, they're there, but they're not guys you would think that that's a shutdown defender. And in the middle, Allen isn't either. Allen uses most of his offense on most of his energy on offense, and the young lad they've got coming off the bench is very, very raw, Daniel
Mm,
Carr. So I was actually more concerned defensively for them in this game. Offensively, London, I think defensively, London can shut teams down.
mm,
What Caledonia didn't really have was anybody who individually who could create a shot like Newcastle had with Taylor to kind of bail them out a little bit. And particularly given that London had the scout report from the week before. So all the things that Caledonia had done well the week before weren't a surprise to London.
mm,
Um, and that just made it difficult. You know, that made it difficult for Caledonia to score the ball. And as you say, the game was done after about 8 minutes.
mm. Bizarrely, this game finished with the exact same score as the game in February, which was London's biggest ever win over
Yeah.
Caledonia at 45 points. And it was bizarre because after about 10 minutes of this game, I tweeted out 45, by the way,
Yeah.
51-96. And
Yeah.
people were coming at me with a betting scandal that I somehow knew what the final score was going to
Goal's
be.
gonna
But
be-
but it was purely relaying what the previous highest score was, and it just happened to end up exactly the same. Um, Alan, 23 points, 8 rebounds, 9 of 14 shooting. The rest of the team, 9 of 42 shooting for
Yeah.
28 points. Pretty rough. Adamo, 20 points. Price, 15 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists. Jonathan Williams, 14 points, 6 of 7 shooting. They were 63% from the floor and 14 of 28 from three.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, so we've reached the
14
end.
Sorry, just
Hey?
that one. The 14 of 28 is a killer because
Yeah,
Caledonia are not in a position where they can defend the 3-point line and defend inside at the same time.
yeah, yeah,
Big problem they have. And all London's threes were in rhythm and they were like practice shots.
yeah. We've reached the end of basketball call. We fleeced you for 48 quid, and now here's the game that you came for. Cheshire Phoenix 114, Sheffield Sharks 95. The 150th meeting between these two teams. I'm not sure there was a wilder one. Dave, you don't normally text me after games, but you did after this one. So I think you're going to go slightly bigger picture than the simple through the game that we
Yeah,
normally do. So let me just tell the tale of the scoreboard, get that out of the way,
yeah,
and then we'll go into everything else. So Nixon had Sheffield's first 10 points. They led early by 7. Cheshire then had an 18-5 run in the second quarter to lead 43-37. In the third quarter, Dirk Williams going nuts from the 3-point line. Sheffield out to 61-77. But Cheshire tied the scores 80-80 after a 19-3 run. Skylar White's 3 made it 94-85. And then from 99-95 with 4 to play, Cheshire scored the last 15 points of the game to make it look comfortable on the scoreboard. So that's what played out, Dave. That was the story of the game. Where do you want to go first?
that's where I go first. Well, the first half was a scoring race.
Mm,
There wasn't that much to it apart from a couple of things I'll pick up on in a minute, which become relevant later.
mm,
Um, the ref and crew was probably the most experienced crew they can put out. Well, not
mm.
experienced, but most recent SLB high level experience. Certainly in relation to the two male refs who have refereed, certainly Tahir for the last 15 years and Betty, I think probably for 3 or 4 years, and the female ref. No, I actually don't know. Um,
It's
I'm not
former player.
in
Name's got
football.
out of my head.
Well, the identity. To be fair, this isn't the identification of it. Isn't doesn't really matter. It's
Okay.
where we're at, because it's nothing about individuals. It never is. Um, we also have a situation at the moment, which may or may not be known to people, whereby table officials are effectively being appointed by the home team. Right? Now, I'm not saying that brings about any conflicts, albeit it's a pretty horrendous situation from a governance perspective. But what happened in this game was an absolute breakdown of the third officiating team, be it the table, be it the refs, whatever. And it went from bad to worse. And unfortunately, it was in the worst possible environment, which is a loud Cheshire gym, with a Cheshire team that thrives off chaos.
Mm.
And then that's not a criticism of them, that's the truth. The way they play, they want the chaos. So the start, it wasn't a particularly well ref game, I'll be blunt, if you're just talking about individual calls. But that's never the issue. Um, Albeit sometimes it affects some people more than others. And I mean, I think Jordan Ratinho's must have run over a black cat on his way to
Mm.
the bus
Yeah. Yeah.
because he got fouled out, having committed maybe one foul
Mm.
um, in this game. But you can't have situations like we had at the end of the second quarter where 10
Mm.
seconds were added to the game.
Yeah.
Basically, Cheshire, I think Cheshire, either Cheshire or Sheffield. Cheshire called a
Uh,
time.
Sheffield had scored. Ben requested a timeout. The horn was blown. The referees didn't hear the horn initially. The game carried on. They hadn't
Clock didn't stop.
then
Clock didn't
noticed that the
start.
clock hadn't started. And then by the time they got the ball to midcourt, the clock then started and everything carried on.
Now, Cheshire, to be absolutely fair to the referees, obviously there's no clock on the table on top of the scoreboard, on top of the backboard at Cheshire, is there?
You could see the clock. You
But
can see the
the
clock at both
game clock
ends.
is is on the wall, isn't it?
It's both ends. I'm sure. I'm sure it's at both
Yeah,
ends. I
both
happen
ends.
to know. I go there. Yeah,
It's on the far wall.
yeah, yeah.
It's on the far wall, so it's not right in front of your eyes. But firstly, if a coach calls a timeout and he calls it legitimately, then the table keeps pressing the horn until the timeout is given. That's a no-brainer because otherwise you have absolute chaos because some people have heard the horn, some people haven't heard the horn, right? So what happened in this situation was that the table pressed the horn for a bit, didn't start the clock, and after 10 seconds, thought, oh well, never mind, we're playing now, we'll start the clock now, which is an utter abortion of a way of running a basketball game. It didn't actually make a difference because
Mm,
no one scored, but it could have,
mm.
right? An absolute horrendous. It's also horrendous, by the way, that
Well, I
we
suppose
played
the
10
argument,
seconds without the referee
yeah,
seeing,
yeah,
without the
without
referee
seeing the
seeing the clock
clock's not
moving.
ticking. That to me is the sort of egregious bit as well. Is that you need to
It's
see the
double.
clock's not.
It's
But
double.
I suppose it could have made a difference because Ben might have got his time out and actually drawn up a play, and they might have scored.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
No, but it could make a difference either way. The problem was
Mm,
it's a horrendous way of mismanaging a basic function.
mm,
Now, there's a referee running, I don't know who it was, a referee running in front of the table at that point,
mm,
right? And there's a horn there, which is there. And if you can't hear the horn because there's too many vuvuzelas or whatever in there, ban them,
mm,
right? You can't have any, or you can't have whistles, you can't have anything which can be a horn, okay? Bottom line. But more than anything, if as a table official you have blown your horn to stop the game, you
mm,
don't get to change your mind
mm,
when the game's still going. You get the referees to come over and you discuss whether a timeout should be made and you reverse the game. So that was my first kind of, uh-oh, what have we got going on here? We
mm,
don't, as I say, we already had Jordan Ratinho on 3 fouls, the third of which was a pretty awful call when he just turned around on the fast break and Skylar Wright ran into him and fell down like he'd been shot.
mm,
So Sheffield at this point, but it's 60 odd, 60 odd. So everyone's feeling kind of good about themselves. So we kind of move on. And then we got, I'm afraid, in the third quarter and the beginning of the fourth quarter, it became a circus. The game became a circus. Um, what do I mean by that? Well, I watched it back, so I'm not just doing this from kind of, and obviously I've got no emotional connection to anybody in that game. Um, Firstly, um, Sheffield, basically went out and as you say, Dirk Williams was incandescently hot and scored the ball repeatedly, and they got themselves into a lead probably a little bit early for that, for the kind of their enjoyment and their celebration because Cheshire aren't going to stop. But there came a period in the last 5 minutes of the third quarter, the first 3 minutes of the fourth quarter, whereby just control was just absolutely lost by everybody in that gym. And what I saw, I thought was a pretty bad look. Now we've already had a situation in the first, is it the first? It may have been in the first half where Skylar White is about to shoot a foul shot for a technical, just as he's
Yeah.
got the ball in his hands, and the table blows the horn. I think Skylar shoots it, misses it, gets a free shot. Doesn't count because the table's blown the horn.
Mm.
Why is the table blowing the horn when the ball's in the shooter's hands? You can't do that. The ball's, that's it. That was a disadvantage for Sheffield because he got a free shot. He actually got two more in the second half.
Yeah, yeah.
With some
I think they
horrendous.
were all in the second half. I think they
But
were all at the same end of the
I
floor.
think,
Yeah, yeah.
I think well, that may be right. I thought one might be the first half, but never mind. Um, and what we got to was a situation where Sheffield were up 16. Cheshire were always going to come back, and over a period of 5 minutes, there were a number of um, calls which were made, which when you look back don't stand scrutiny. Nearly all of them against Sheffield. Some of them genuine calls against Sheffield because Sheffield committed 12 fouls in about 5 minutes.
Mm,
And some of them were genuine fouls, and some of them were not smart plays where you're chasing an offensive rebound and you're committing a foul and you're putting somebody in a penalty.
mm.
Okay, so this isn't entirely on rest, but fundamentally, there were three or four calls in a row.
The other thing, just I agree with you, but the other thing to add into that is, uh, you've obviously got the crowd shouting it's 6-1, 7-1, whatever the foul count was. But part of that is Dirk is hitting threes at the other end, and nobody's fouling
Yeah.
Dirk on threes. So the foul
Oh,
count
no,
can be 6 or 7-1 if they're going to the basket and you're shooting threes.
oh, absolutely, and I've gone, and that's not the thing. I mean, there are
But what I'm saying is that adds to the sort of atmosphere of the game when you're getting the feeling of
the thing with being a pro ref, Dan, is you've got to forget about the atmosphere.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
You cannot tell me that in this game that happened.
yeah. Mm,
I just think the chaos was overwhelming in this game. You
yeah,
were there, I
it was.
wasn't
Yeah,
there, but
yeah.
I thought the chaos was overwhelming,
Mm,
and so we end up in a situation. And again, I watched this back not far long before this, whereby I'll get the order of these wrong, but in a very short period of time, we have Sky. I missed something. I can't remember what I've missed, but Diggins goes to the rim, makes a tough layup, contested layup over Chapman. Chapman may have fouled him, no call. It ends up on the ground on the far end.
mm,
Ball's
yeah.
in play. You were quite right. Ball's in play, has to stay in play. Obviously, the crowd saying, stop the game. No, you don't stop the game because you don't stop the game until Cheshire get the ball back. You can't. Otherwise, it would be a cheats charter. You
Mm,
know, anybody could lie down whenever they wanted. So Sheffield come back down the court. Okay. Sheffield come back down the court. They throw the ball at Deloach. Deloach turns around. He's about to make a layup. Deloach is fouled, right? Astoundingly, the referee calls it a foul on the floor. You
mm,
watch it back, it's just nuts. Can't be a foul on the floor, right? So the referee so Cheshire at that point Sheffield get the ball at the sideline. So that should have been two shots for Deloach, opportunity to stop the run. At the sideline, the ball comes in and Rideau fouls Williams. Right, hits him on the arm. The ref calls a foul. What then happens is Rideau's kind of doing the fake player thing with his hands up like this, right?
mm,
I was reaching down, but keeping his hands like this for no good reason. Williams goes to walk around him. As Williams goes to walk around him, Rideau flexes his elbow. Not a lot, actually, more, not as much as that. But he flexes his elbow just enough to hit Williams on the head. It's there. If you're a Cheshire fan, you don't like me saying this, it's the truth. He did it.
mm,
I saw it. I saw it when it happened. Tiny motion, but it was there. It was a provocative motion as opposed to a violent act. Something which the referees didn't see. Dirk felt it. Dirk turned around and he slaps Rideau's hands. Right in front of the Cheshire bench. Obviously, everybody's up. You've got your inexperienced referee who then only has ever sees the second thing instead of the first thing, doesn't understand that Rideau is basically an agitator and a provocateur and is doing that exactly right. And you see the look on Rideau's face when Williams hits him. You see that kind of sly smile, which is, yeah, I got you there, mate. And he did. He got him. And it's an unsportsmanlike foul called on Dirk Williams. So instead of Sheffield having two shots with Dirk, I think they're in the penalty. Instead, the unsportsmanlike overrides the personal foul. So Cheshire get two shots and they get the ball. All because, unfortunately, the ref reacted to what happened subsequently instead of the person who provoked it. Now, you hear on the camera, you hear the Sheffield guys saying, someone on the Sheffield team say, what about the elbow? I think it might have been Atiba, might be Marco, I don't know. You hear it. It was there, okay? And they missed it, so they get that wrong. So So things are then picking up in energy and intensity and whatever. And then we come down the court the next time and again I may be getting my order a little bit wrong here, so forgive me. Um, but Robinson, who's scored the ball, you know, very well all day, albeit benefited from 19 foul shots, which is a lot of foul shots for
Mm,
one guy. Um, Takes the ball at the rim. Retino plays fantastic defense on him. You know, fantastic defense, gets his body, goes up with him, goes straight, basically blocks him at the rim, um, vertically without, reaching in. And the same ref who's just called the non-shooting foul on Deloach, which should have been a shooting foul, calls that as a foul. Retino, who is not the most demonstrative guy, to be fair, we all know, we've seen it being around for long. He then does the what, and he's then teed up and he's fouled out the game.
mm,
So basically, it was a bad call followed by a missed bad call, followed by Jordan Routino making a great play and an awful call, followed by a far too quick technical, given the emotion that was going on in the game at that time, to foul out Sheffield's one of Sheffield's most critical players, and Routino is one of their most critical players, even though he doesn't score the ball much, is because of all the other things that he does.
mm,
Right, that's on the back of. I watched all his fouls back today. The third foul he got, which was a nonsense, and the first foul he got, which was as soft as you could ever imagine in the first minute of the game when Skylar White faced him up. Right, so it reminded me again where Fab got fouled out, having committed half a foul.
mm,
It just really felt sorry for him. So so he now gets a technical. So at this point, the Sheffield guys are thinking, what is going on here? You then get the farce of the fact that at some point the ball's thrown to Skylar just as just as the floor wiper comes on, so he gets
mm,
another free practice shot, which the refs don't deal with. We had a situation shortly afterwards where the next foul down there, which is when again Robinson goes and gets an offensive rebound and he's fouled. Chapman throws the ball at the referee, the female referee, and she just lets it basically bounce off her and does nothing. So discipline at this point is absolutely gone. And and then we get to the nadir of it all, which is about 8 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, when we get a situation where Mike Ocherobia runs down the court and Skylar White stands in the lane and just falls over, basically. Just falls over. He flopped. It was floppy McFlopperson. Again, smart play. You can call it that, but he's literally jogging down the court. There's no play on the ball. The ball's nowhere near, and ref calls an offensive foul. Right at this point, Atiba, who's been standing there stoically, and Atiba has in the past, as you're well aware, as far as I'm concerned, had far too short a fuse on things. But in this game, he let it all go.
mm,
Right. So at this point, that is kind of, I assume, the final straw for him. We don't see him on the TV, but what we do see, and this was, I thought, the most egregious thing, and this is what I thought became a circus. We see Skylar put his hands on the female ref, turn her, and actually guide, not physically, not aggressively, point to where Atiba is, with Ben Thomas in the background, and they're both saying, "Hey, look at him," having put his hands on the referee. The
he was
referee,
on. To be fair, Atiba was on the court at that point.
that's fine. Yeah, well, that's fine. You don't put your hands on the referee,
Mm,
right? And this happened 3 weeks ago in Newcastle against London, where Philip put his hands on the referee as well,
mm,
albeit the referee put his hands on first. But you cannot allow yourself as a referee to have a player touch you and tell you where to look, and then you give a technical you're in front of the bench in a home team. That is weakness.
mm,
It's desperate, desperate weakness. And it comes from not teeing up Chapman earlier on when he'd thrown the ball at her.
mm,
And that is people who are, I'm afraid, and as a group, they were, and what I've just talked about there, those 6 minutes, right? Because then what happens after he gets the technical, Skyler decides he's going to do a lap of honor, basically upping the crowd, making it into a Globetrotters game, celebrating the fact that Atiba's got his technical. And I just thought it was as a look for the league, and you know me, I'm not in any way moralistic towards winning what you have to do to win or lose. And I know fine well that's what Cheshire want to be in that gym. That's fine. That's the way they play, right? So I'm not judging any of the players, but you need strong people to deal with it. You need strong, experienced people, and neither the table nor the refs were that in this game. Everything went wrong. As I say, the floor wiper coming on the court when the technical's been given. A ref giving a technical to, I think Chapman subsequently got a technical for saying something to her, but then Tahir Akar didn't realise that a technical had been given, so they had to come across. So Skylar gets to shoot another practice free throw. So the whole thing just looked awful. Now I tweeted afterwards, right? Not quite sure how I'm going to describe the officiating in that game at Cheshire. Happy S&B isn't on tonight, indefensible. I can't give the league a pass. If it wants to be taken seriously, then that ain't it. I've got, in many ways, you could argue you reap what you sow. Sheffield started all of this last year.
Mm,
Um, but, the one thing that we've been consistent on, I think, when we've done this show, is talking about the product and talking about the things that can be done to improve the game as a whole, right? Um, we don't have enough qualified officials in this country to be in a situation where we can lose 20 of them.
mm,
Not in games that matter. It's never going to be a problem in every game because not every game has the edge that Cheshire and Sheffield did.
mm.
You've got to remember 2 weeks ago,
Yeah.
Cheshire won on the buzzer on an offensive foul that wasn't called,
Mm,
right? And Sheffield kind of took that, and they had to take that because they kind of threw that game away. So they gave themselves a chance to lose. Okay, but and no doubt the league's put the people they think are the most capable people into it. But
mm,
then you've got a table which can't blow the horn and keep blowing the horn, and subsequently can't, and subsequently we end up with the absolute disaster at the end of a guy with 5 fouls still on the court.
mm,
Absolute chaos. No one's got a clue. We've got the Sheffield guys just looking and thinking, hang on a minute, we've just had 37 fouls called on us in this game,
mm,
right? We've got a statistician who's put one of the technicals on the on the
mm.
wrong coach.
It's been corrected.
Well, for sure it has now, but it has to be done in real time.
Mm,
So we're beginning to get a pattern of this stuff. And obviously the last time was the Sheffield Caledonia game where I had to apologise where we had the 2 fouls on the same player. But there are always going to be flashpoint games, and you have to be ready for stuff. And I'm afraid um, you could argue Cheshire won the main game, but the weakness of the referees in asserting who was in charge in that game. And as I say, calling two of the weakest fouls, one on Jordan Routinho when Skylar White fell over, and one on Mike Ocharobia when Skylar White fell over, whilst allowing some of the other stuff to go on. A technical for Routinho for basically doing this, but not for Chapman for throwing the ball at the referee. Nothing for Rideau for sticking his elbow into Williams. They've got to be able to see this stuff and they've got to be strong enough to deal with this stuff. And strong refs are not popular refs.
mm,
Never going to be popular refs. Look at the game at the end of last year when Ben Thomas went off afterwards in Cheshire when Ian MacDonald called on a sports night foul with 20 seconds to go against Eagles, actually.
mm,
Because it was a 10-point game instead of a 12-point game. You have to be at times, you have to have a degree of arrogance and a degree of willingness to be in control. As we've always talked about the Neil Wilkinson thing, basket interference, they called it
mm,
by half the Turkish nation. You have to be in control, and it wasn't. And if that is not a wake-up call to the people on both sides of what we've got at the minute, which is a bunch of people who have qualified, who spent a lot of time qualifying, earning high degree of qualifications in both refereeing and tabling, who are basically sitting on their hands and doing games at far lower levels, for them to get around the table and for the league to get around the table and to sort this out, then I don't know what is. Because
mm,
I don't want to see something like that again.
mm,
And that isn't, and I don't, as I say, I don't want this to come across as anti-Cheshire because it isn't anti-Cheshire. It's what, as I say, it played into Cheshire's hands, and Sheffield ultimately at the end of the game lost their discipline, lost their cool, and they couldn't score the ball, which is why they lost the game.
mm,
Right? So yeah, it's what Cheshire wanted it to be. But it's about the way the whole thing looks.
mm,
And the reality is the game has to be controlled. And the game was not controlled. There was very little I would describe as courtcraft from the referees. The table were clearly. Um, this is where I come down to, home teams picking the table. That means you can pick the cheapest guy. You can pick the people who are the nearest. You can. It's a nonsense. You don't have the fourth official in football isn't picked by the home team. Being a table official is a substantial, significant, and important role in a basketball game.
Mm,
You can't say we're running a pro league and say, oh, but you just find the table officials for us. You can't. And this is the governance thing that we've banged on about for ages and ages. It needs to be sorted out. Now, as you know, and as I know, because we talk to people, I've talked to a few people up north. This isn't just an issue about whether our league is recognised or not.
mm,
There are a lot of scores which are attempting to be settled here,
mm,
but on both sides, and they need to get their heads together. And whoever, and like most things, whoever the militants are, whoever the ones who are, no surrender, they can disappear. I don't want to see them again.
mm,
But the ones who are sensible, and I'm talking about referee and league officials, right, need to sit down in a room or in a group email or in a WhatsApp chat and need to sort it out.
mm,
Because what we saw was the law of the jungle yesterday.
mm,
And that isn't, and to be fair, if you're a ref and things are going beyond you, going away from you, you need a strong table to tell you what's going on to keep everything right. And in neither area was that game well served yesterday. So when Sheffield are, upset about that, I get that they're upset about that. I think there were a number of calls, probably if you went through the film, probably 6 or 7 of them in that crucial period, aided by some bad decisions from Sheffield, right? But 6 or 7 bad calls, bad situations, bad reading of the situation, which went against them. And when that happens in a row and you're in that environment,
mm.
and the crowd's being hyped and nobody's on your side, then eventually you saw it on the bench. The Sheffield guys were laughing on the bench.
Mm.
And
Because,
I've been around players enough to know when that's genuine and also it's Rod Glasgow at one point Rod Glasgow is the nicest, most he's your Mike Conley. He's never going to get a technical. He's your most straightforward, um, level-headed ex-military family you
mm.
could ever imagine. And when the floor wiper runs on the court just as they're about to shoot a timeout, even he's going, "What are we doing?"
Because to me that it was almost like, and I agree with you. And look, every week there's going to be a call here, a call there that people disagree with, and sometimes people are right and sometimes people are wrong. And as I say, there were some yesterday where people were arguing. I mean, the obvious one is Marco arguing about a shooting foul on an offensive rebound. As we talked about the London game earlier on, it's exactly the same thing. It's a shooting foul. So, and that's fine, but I think what happens in that situation is when you get things like the timeout situation, the retaking of free throws because somebody's fouled out and they haven't left the game yet, and you've given the ball to them to shoot the free throw when it's not time to do that.
Mm.
A player fouling out during a timeout on a technical, the markup going up. I saw the 5 foul marker going up, and nobody saying, "Well, hang on a minute, he can't go back out onto court. He's fouled out." Because they're already in chaos, so they're not paying attention to what the foul count is because they just look and say, "Well, we've all got loads of fouls, blah blah blah." And the other thing was there was another foul where I thought Deloach had already committed a fifth foul earlier on, but it went against somebody else. So there was some confusion in all of that. But I think what happens is when you get stuff like the timeout thing, the free throw thing, people fouling out and not leaving the court, and things happening when it's supposed to, um, that adds to the sort of sense of chaos
Yeah.
and therefore the sense of a grievance. And we can sit and go, oh, all these free throws against Sheffield, but there's probably 10 of them that they've uh, inflicted on themselves, if you like,
Absolutely, yeah.
because of the sense of grievance that they get to at that point. But I think it's the element of everything that's going on that's sort of chaotic plays into that, and therefore it's almost a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Well, it
It
is.
sort of
That's
gets worse
spot
and worse
on,
and
and
worse.
it's spot. That's absolutely spot on, and it was always you felt the game was being as a player and as a coach. You give me a ref who's in charge as opposed to a refereeing group who's in charge, even if they're wrong, as opposed to one whereby everything is going on around them, right? And I'm afraid, when um, a ref lets a player put hands on it, for me, that's just the absolute no-no. You don't, I know you see it in football occasionally where a player wants to put his arm around the ref, it's just an absolute no-no as well. You respect everybody's, and the fact that, and the lack of control over that stuff, which is then balanced out by then imposing soft technicals. And the one on Coutinho was a soft technical to foul them out, not understanding that you've just made a bad call to give them 4 fouls, and now you're going to foul them out on that in that game, in that environment. And then it just adds into it all. It was just everything ran away from them, and it's not a personal thing because those three refs had ref the Manchester Surrey game, it probably wouldn't have been a problem.
No.
It's a bit, because the game didn't have the same stuff on it. Okay. So, and it doesn't mean that those three refs aren't qualified refs, aren't good refs, can't referee games.
Mm.
Can't referee games live. Of course they can, they've done it before. Um, but you got to know what you're walking into. And what they unfortunately walked into, and what they allowed, and the table, I throw the table into this as well, what they allowed to perpetuate, to continue, and failing to deal with stuff when they needed to, and failing to understand precisely, you know, what was going on in that game, made it an awful spectacle. And that, no, sorry, not a remarkably exciting spectacle if you're in the
Mm.
gym. I get
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
But from the perspective of somebody who's, I think, quite clear-sighted about this, who really doesn't, as I say, does not have a dog in the fight. I really couldn't be fussed who wins that game, or other than that. Um, we can't have multiple games like that. And the problem is, it's a copycat league. So, as I say, Philip had his hands in the ref 3 weeks ago, technical foul, whatever. Now, we're going to see more of the, if players see weaknesses, players will exploit those weaknesses, right? And they will do whatever they can, and it's part of the job. You're a professional player. Your job is to win. You can't criticize it because this is what these guys are paid for. It's their livelihood. There's no moralistic side to this. But if they feel that they're in a position where they can do whatever they can to win, they can influence it by whatever way they can, they will do it.
Mm.
And in that game, chaos abounded, and it was a bad look. What gets me is that it's self-defeating,
Mm.
and it's all fixable, right? I cannot handle the fact that we have 22 of, and they may not all be our best referees, but 22 of our more experienced referees who would have known what they were walking into in that gym. None of them are refereeing games. That to me is, I don't care who's right and wrong, Dan.
Mm.
If you're a basketball player, you play. If you're a coach, you coach. If you're a fan, you come. If you're a table official, you're a table official. If you're a ref, you're a ref.
Mm.
And yeah, I don't know what I can. I can't be moving it anymore, really. Just if anybody wants me, I'm here. Mediation, my specialty.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I'm sorry it took away from the game, but I thought yeah, if you go back and you watch, I'd say those 7 minutes, which were, a little bit of Sheffield Harry Carry, but also, as I say, just little calls, like ref being distracted by Diggins being on the floor and then calling a foul on the floor
Mm.
when Deloach is literally in the shooting a layup at the time.
Mm.
And then that leads to Rideau and his elbow, and then that leads to not seeing that, and then Williams loses his cool, and Williams didn't score a point after that. So
Mm,
you'd have to say a great job by Rideau because he got into Williams's head.
mm,
And all of that stuff. That if they'd seen that, that's a double unsportsmanlike, and so instead that's Williams shooting two foul shots instead of Rideau. Sheffield still with the basketball, momentum changes, all that stuff.
mm,
It's tough. So we need the best. We've got the best players, and we have some seriously good players. The first half was a seriously good exhibition of
mm.
offensive
Yeah,
basketball.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
60-60. I mean, and the guys were making it. It wasn't a 60-60 like it was when Cheshire played Caledonia, where they
Yeah.
were open threes. It was a proper game,
Mm,
and 60-60. So we've got all of that going on. It has to be managed better. It has
mm,
to be managed better. And you can't have a home team appointing officials. I don't care. That to me is like you can't change the rules during the season. And just to say, oh, they're only table officials, no way.
mm,
They're not only table officials. And that doesn't just it's not a slight on Cheshire. I'm not suggesting that I did anything wrong.
mm,
But I'm suggesting it puts people in invidious positions,
mm,
and it puts them in very difficult situations. And as ever, we only talk about it when the worst happens.
mm.
When 95% of the games, we just crack on, and the 5% of the games it happens. So this all appears a little bit. I hope this isn't coming across as a little bit as too disasterish.
Mm.
As being kind of the end of the world, etc. I'm not trying to come across like that, but if there was ever a game to explain, why if a sport wants to be taken seriously, it has to look after itself first.
Mm,
That was it. I wouldn't want to ref the Sheffield Cheshire game, next Sheffield Cheshire game.
mm,
I really wouldn't, because I think there's just so much stored up now. Um, that it's going to be tough. Makes for good, man. It's a good watch. I get that.
yeah, yeah,
In the
yeah, yeah,
gym, in the chaos we love.
yeah, yeah.
If we're talking about it from the perspective of purists and the perspective of wanting to show our league as being as good as it is as possible on the international stage, that ain't it.
Mm,
It has to be better than that.
mm.
On that note,
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
I don't know. What do you think? You
it,
tell me what you think. I've talked a lot. You were there.
it's hard for when I'm sat there doing that. It's hard to sort of, and I've not watched any of it back, so I'm not the most reliable witness, Your Honour, in that regard, because you've got the director talking. We had issues with talkback, so you can hear cameras and you get ambient noise and blah blah blah. But there were things where you're just going, what's happening here? What's going on? And again, I go back to it's the process things
Yeah,
that feed everything else,
absolutely.
because when the process things aren't done properly, people go, you don't know what you're doing. And it is that thing of um, it's black and white. There is no, we can argue. You can say Rotino's got a soft call, and somebody else can say, oh no, that was a good call.
Yeah,
We can
absolutely.
argue. There's grey on that, and we can't. There's no definitive. But when a player gets five fouls, he can't be in the game. When a timeout is called, we can't play on. When a player is fouled out, we can't give the shooter the ball for a free throw until the substitution has been made and comes out of the game. And he doesn't have to walk straight out of the game. He gets 30 seconds while
Yeah,
the coach thinks about who he wants to put in. And I think those things, which are evidently right or wrong, are more egregious in some ways than a bad call here or a bad call there, because they're they're a bit more circumstantial. They're a bit more judgmenty.
yeah. The black
But
and
what
white.
but what it does is, if you feel there is a judgment call going against you and you see a definitive mistake going against you as well, it plays into the whole thing of this is all rubbish. They've lost control, and then you get the situation, because I like you. I saw Chapman throw the ball, and I thought, oh my goodness. Now you could say he was passing the ball to the referee.
I
It
threw the
didn't.
ball to the referee. He lost his.
But it was one of those where it goes, and maybe former play, you sort of let that slide in the way that somebody who isn't a former player doesn't. I don't know, but my first take was that is I thought it was a technical foul. It wasn't called. and in some ways that's a judgment call on the referee because you're judging whether you've been slighted or not because it was directly at you. But that sort of situation comes out of feeling everything is gone, all control has been lost, everything is gone, which I think stems from the process things being wrong
Yeah,
as much as
the call's been wrong.
the calls being wrong,
And that's it. And I agree with
if
that.
not more
Absolutely.
so.
That was always where I was. If you get the process wrong, I've got no faith in you. But then I add in, you also have to be protective of your own space.
Mm,
And you can't have people put hands on you, and you can't accept people throwing the ball at you, and you have to at some point, you got to make a stand on that
mm,
and say no, no, there's that. And instead, we got these soft technicals where people
yeah.
say the odd things,
Well,
not,
that's
not
the sort of juxtaposition of it against I can't remember who got the technical in the beginning of the game, the first technical of the game. There was somebody very early on where it was a foul and a technical, and you sort of, oh,
Kane.
that
It
was
was Kane.
I described it as a quick whistle, and the Rotino one exactly the same. It was like, wow, there wasn't much. It wasn't Teddy Allen throwing the ball at the wall. You know
No,
what I mean? It was just it was like a sort of surprise, and if you think you've had a call go against you, you're going to look surprised.
yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, and yeah, it just as I say, we aren't deep enough to manage 20 people who've been ref in pro games
Mm,
for the past 5 or 6 years, losing them all.
mm,
And eventually they're going to be flashpoints. And this was a flashpoint,
mm,
you know. And to be even fair, I mean, even, the two of the refs, I mean, Tia's been refereeing for a long time.
mm,
He's not been a crew chief that much at that level. He's always generally refereeing with Ed or with Keith or with people down south, so, and certainly not refereed many games in Cheshire. So, so you're then in a slightly different environment there. And if you referee as much as these guys do, as I say, I can't hide it enough. None of them are bad refs, but you have to have a presence, and the table has to assist you with that presence, and eventually, and that presence shows in different ways. And you can say to Forrester here, you're saying you can criticise him for giving the technical, then you criticise him for not giving the technical.
yeah, yeah,
Oh, so you can't have it both ways. But the answer is you kind of can if you get it right. There are certain things which are automatic, and there are certain things whereby it's a quick word, just calm down, know when to take things down a bit.
yeah. Mm,
You know, Is it- you know, and it just got it wrong. It was just. So I hope the way forward is that we get some urgency about this stuff, because I'm fed up with the league, to a certain degree, letting down the players by not having the appropriate processes around it. I can't contemplate, and I didn't know until I'd actually asked somebody today that the home teams were responsible for getting the table officials.
mm,
That to me is just like a bomb waiting to explode. That is on any professional sports situation. So I put it, yeah. So yeah, refs, table, administration. And that's even refs who aren't refing because they want an extra 50 quid. Get yourself on the court. Do what you do best. Do what you put
mm,
all the time into. Just do it. Find a way. Get on the court. Sort it out later.
mm.
That's some more heads to bang together, Dan.
Yeah, yeah.
There aren't enough heads to bang
Yeah,
together in this
yeah,
sport.
yeah, yeah.
You know. But anyway,
Anyway, Robinson, 31 points, 16 of 19 from the free throw line. I looked it up. It wasn't the most in the live stats era, but it was like sixth or seventh most, I think.
mm.
7 rebounds and 5 assists. White, 20 points, 10 of 10 free throws, 8 rebounds. Diggins and
No, it's
Policelli.
actually 10 to 13.
Well, yeah, yeah. No, I think he made one, so I think
Maybe
it's
well, maybe
11 of
11 to
13.
13.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not here.
Diggins and Policelli 15 each. They were at time of writing 38 from 47 from the free throw line, but I believe
That's
that
changed.
has been
Flash
corrected,
news. Yeah, hot
and
news.
it's
40 of 49.
40 or 49. So the stat that I put out last night, which was in the live stats era since 2008, 47 is the second most in a top flight game. It's still the second most because 52 Worcester had in a playoff quarter-final second leg against London in April 2014. But it was the most makes because London Capital had 37 against Guildford in
What's mix? Right.
March 2029. March 2009. Sorry. Yes, I'm just checking. I
Oh,
got
yeah,
the text
interesting.
message.
Yeah, I've got the hot off the press article in the Yorkshire Post. To be fair,
Mm,
um, Atiba says, "I don't have a response. It's the norm now. You've just got to find a way to win, despite whatever you're facing in the game on the day." Asked if his side could have ridden the storm better, he said, "Handling better is difficult because we had extreme foul trouble to overcome, so you couldn't have played the players you want to play to overcome that. Anyways, it was multi-layered, so it was multi-layered in how we could overcome that." Um, and that's basically it. So that's a far more measured and sensible. That's a very measured and sensible thing to say.
mm, mm,
Um, but when a coach says that's just the way it is now, what is it? That exact phrase. It's the norm now. You've just got to find a way to win despite whatever you're facing in the game on the day. It's not great, is it?
no, no. Uh, Dirk Williams, 29.7 of 10 from 3 point range. Chapman, 24 points. Nixon, 17 points. There was 16 of 31 from three and 16 of 34 from two. And that's kind of the disappointment in it all. We spent however long we've spent talking about it, but that was an unbelievable first half.
Oh yeah,
Like
absolutely.
unbelievable.
The effort and the energy and
Yeah,
the shot making in particular.
yeah.
From everybody.
And we've
Really,
not
really
had chance to talk about that. That's what we would have.
no,
Yeah,
but well, basketball's a psychological sport, isn't it? You've got
yeah,
to
yeah.
keep your head in the game, and at the end of the day, Cheshire probably aided by the environment,
Mm,
did, and Sheffield didn't.
mm,
And Sheffield hampered by the foul trouble.
mm,
Honestly, those Coutinho calls. I mean, you go back and watch Coutinho's fouls. The first one, Skylar White kind of um, faces him up in the post, and he kind of just has his hands on him for a very short period, and you see Atiba kind of complaining about, "Well, what about down there?" The second one, he kind of, yeah, Policelli has him in the post. He probably commits a foul, albeit the foul could have been committed by the other Sheffield guy coming in as well. The third one's just a nonsense, and then the fourth one's a nonsense, and the technical's a nonsense.
mm,
And and he's a massive player for them,
mm,
and somebody who, as I say, just got refed out of the game. That's a difficult thing to handle,
mm,
and at that point, he's your stabilizer. You're not going to get stabilized play out of Kane.
mm,
You've got James sitting on the bench. You've got Nixon kind of went quiet after the first in the third quarter, but and once Dirk got involved in that stuff with LaQuincy, he was done.
mm,
Mentally, he wasn't there. So he didn't score a point all the rest of the way, 29 points in 20 minutes and then no more. So yeah, psychologically, and then the one thing I will say about Sheffield is the one issue I had. I was even watching it during the game. I was thinking the one difference between these teams, I think Sheffield are probably, if you were to say, they're probably pound for pound the more talented team. But Cheshire have a motor, and I'm not sure Sheffield have a motor which runs the whole 40 minutes every game.
mm,
Cheshire aren't going to stop, and playing hard is playing that at that speed and that hard is a skill, and you have to do it the whole game to beat Cheshire. And I'm not sure. Sheffield are a bit older, a little bit more experienced. I think they can manage games at times, and the only way you manage playing against Cheshire is playing as hard as them the whole game.
mm,
So I thought, mentally they dropped off once they got the 16-point lead, and the motor just dropped a little bit. But a lot of mitigating features.
mm, mm. So that's it for this week. We've
Hmm.
reached the end. That was
Maximum, is that the longest period of time in one game,
it,
or was that on the Caledonia London?
yeah, it might have
Yeah,
been. Yeah, it
the
might have been.
Caledonia London.
Yeah, I know the game.
You
I
know the
know
game.
the game.
250. Yeah. Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
no, there we go.
There we go. So we'll see what continues on from that. But as you say, I think some some heads need knocking together or
Yeah, and
something.
on top of that, of course, we've still got no resignations from the BBF board, so we'll keep
Yeah,
it on that team. And still no announcement of any game or still suspension from international basketball. Everything's normal. People are nothing to look at.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But did you see ice hockey had a game abandoned because the ice melted or something?
I didn't see that, but
No,
that's
that's
what I mean.
just deflecting, deflecting.
But at least, bless them, at least no one's been, I don't say this lately, at least no players have been killed in the basketball game this year.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
On that cheery note,
And
we will go. I don't know what's happening next week. I think we've got. I don't think. Uh, I think I'm free next Sunday, but I think there are a lot of games all at the same time, so we'll have to work out what we do. But
okay, we'll give you
we'll
them
see.
up.
We'll work it out. We'll work it out offline.
Cool.
Uh, but for now, we're going to say goodbye, and we will see you all next week. Goodbye.